Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Read, Watch, Listen on the East Brunswick Public Library podcast. My name is Chris Barnes, and I'm your host, and we talk with people in the community about what they've been enjoying, whether it's a book, video, music, and how you can get it at the library. So we have a very special guest today. She's a local music teacher. She lives in East Brunswick, and she volunteers with a bunch of different groups. So you've probably seen our guest, Cheryl Brass, around town doing something. Cheryl, how are you today?
I'm very well, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, yes. Cheryl is also a library super user. We certainly see her around the building. So we're glad to have you on the show and giving your recommendation. So with the show, Read, Watch, Listen, let's start out with Cheryl. What have you been reading lately?
Well, some fantastic books that our library has. And I had to whittle down my top list here because there's so much exciting things. But the first thing I'd like to talk about is some SNL writers. I'm reading Rachel Dratch's book, A Girl Walks into a Bar. And it's a very funny, like watching an SNL comedy routine, but reading it in a book at the comfort of my own time. And I really enjoy laughing out loud. So I just finished reading Colin Jost's book, which is called A Very Punchable Face. And he's from Staten Island, and it was very interesting. And I thought I would try another biography, and I landed on Rachel Dratch. So it's very funny, the theme of comedy writers, SNL writers, I guess, that I'm into at the moment.
I completely agree with you. She is so underrated. I loved how they used her in the first couple seasons of 30 Rock as everything from an animal handler to an electrician. It was great. She was a recurring character, but never the same character. And it was one of those just really great things to notice in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And she talks about that exact thing in the book and her trajectory. So I don't want to give anything away, but highly recommend the read. It sounds like you'll love it.
Yeah, well, you sold me on the book. And just so all our listeners know, if you look in our show notes, our producer, Melissa, is going to put links to everything in the catalog or where you can find it. So don't worry, we'll make this easy for you. Okay, so we're going to segue into the next part. What have you been watching lately?
I love film and TV, but my most favorite is with my kids and my family watching Abbot Elementary on ABC. Are you watching Abbott?
I watched the first couple episodes of it. I've been waiting. I don't know. I've become one of those people who at first was like, I don't like watching binge shows or whatever. But now I'm like, well, I like having maybe 2 or 3 episodes at a time. So I'm waiting to restock my Hulu queue on that. So why don't you tell everyone about the show in case they haven't been tuned into it?
Abbott Elementary is like The Office, but in a school. And as a teacher, it is perfect. It encompasses all those fun interactions we have with kids. And it's just so well written. And they're really known for their cast. They win a lot of awards. And Kinta Bronson, the brilliant writer, and she's a showrunner, and her skills clearly show in the casting and the group that she put together. And with the writing, it is one of the best shows on TV.
No, it's well done. It's different. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's been such a long time since there was a school-based sitcom on TV. Like the last one that I can remember was Head of the Class, but that's almost like 25, 30 years ago at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Saved by the Bell, give a shout out to that. That was school-based drama, comedy,
But like,
Saturday morning.
yeah, but that's like a different version of it because that just felt like it was a weird thing with these 5 adult teenagers who happened to be at a school. And it was also really weird because I was reading about it. One of the reasons why that show was on so long was that they did the minimal work they needed to make it technically considered an educational program. So NBC could air that and be like, well, we fulfilled our community obligation with Saved by the Bell. And nothing Screech did was really helping anyone.
That is true. And their social justice commentary was, it was well intended. Let's put it that way. It was well intended. But I would say that Abbott Elementary clearly fits the moment, and it does it very inclusively. And I really look at that as a nice family comedy, a half hour that everybody can enjoy. And it's just brilliant. And I really respect that kind of high level writing and delivery.
The writing's great on it. And like you said, it's family friendly in a way that it doesn't feel like it's pandering to a toddler. I mean, well, I have a 4-year-old at home, so we're all over the map on TV that we're watching. And I do have to admit, some stuff I watch, I'm like, oh, I think that even she's a little too old for this. So can we not watch this?
Right. Absolutely.
So, all right. And last but not least is music. And you're a music teacher, so I'm sure you have lots of musical opinions. So what's something good that you've been listening to?
I do love music. I have the most eclectic taste, I would describe myself as, but I'm a huge Broadway lover. So I really enjoy outdoor running and I'll listen to those soundtracks and I'll sing along with the musicals. I highly recommend actually segue into also what I'm watching, Matilda the musical on Netflix. It just came out and that's an iteration of Roald Dahl's book that was a brilliant movie and then became a Broadway musical. And now it's a filmed musical in a different iteration. And it is just brilliantly acted and the music is outstanding too. I highly encourage people to watch that musical.
So we talked about the music side of things. Are there any podcasts that you've been enjoying lately?
So there's a great podcast on film that goes along with this podcast, actually, Brett Goldstein's Films to Be Buried With. So in this podcast, Brett Goldstein invites a friend who's an actor or a writer in the medium, and he invites them to explore their life through the lens of their favorite movies. So he starts out saying, "I'm so sorry you've died." And then he tells them, how special they are and please explain your life through movies. And he asks them what their favorite movie is and why. And I can relate so much to that because I, as you can tell, enjoy speaking about what I'm watching, reading, and listening. And so I'm happy to share those opinions. And it's a really nice way of discovering how people influence their lives based on the movies and TV they watched growing up.
So what would be one of your movies that you would put on your list for stuff you'd be buried with?
Oh, I don't know how I didn't see that coming, but I would say all-time favorites. I'm a silly laugh out loud kind of girl. I really enjoy like a good My Cousin Vinny or, something written by Aaron Sorkin. It would be something that I would really enjoy, but I like also those light hearted, comedies too. Just trying to think maybe like any Will Ferrell movie or something that kind of just makes you want to smile and just enjoy.
I like how you were able to wrap in comedy into the three categories of the Read, Watch, Listen show. I think that's a first. So
Oh, my pleasure. I
if we gave
Laughter
away
is such
prizes, you would be earning one for this.
well, thank you. Comedy is a big part of my life. I enjoy it very much and it's fun. It's wonderful.
Great. Again, Cheryl, thank you for being our guest today. To our listeners, make sure you check out the show notes because we will have a complete list of all of Cheryl's recommendations for you to listen to. This podcast is, as always, produced by Melissa Hosick. You can check out all of our other Read, Watch, Listen and every other East Brunswick Public Library podcast on ebpl.org/podcast. For EBPL, I'm Chris Barnes. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Chris.